Okay, it is upon us, the final day.
It was inevitable.
Welcome, everybody. We have reached the final stretch. This is it. You're coming to the finish line. You are hurtling towards the finish line at warp speed. And in about an hour to hour and a half, you are going to have everything you need to be able to test an ad, bring it to full scale, and make it happen with better results, better conversions, and have the ability to find the best messaging again for whichever offer you have. And some of you may feel like looking at your click rates that you're going a bit backwards, but we're going to clarify some of that for you because sometimes it's a matter of taking one step back to take two steps forward. And sometimes, if you're looking at your click rates with your challenge tests and going, they dipped a bit from my benefit test. That's actually the normal thing that happens most of the time, unless you are in a very hyper competitive niche where the challenge is actually the thing that people primarily need to get past. And so when you use them, they typically will increase conversions. But in other cases, in almost every other case where it's not a hyper competitive market, you're usually looking at your CTRLs getting just a little bit lower on the challenge test. And a lot of you might think that's a bad thing, but it's not. It's actually a good thing because it means it's getting to a more specific person and filtering out some of those people that would not have converted anyway, but that challenge is not primary for them. So um, there's some stuff. Obviously, every particular one is different. But here's the good news. Even if your test hasn't worked out the way you expected, here's what I know and here's what I can promise you. Now that you know how to do the test, the next time you do it, you're going to do it a lot better. And you're probably going to see better results because you also now know how to do the body copy in a way that actually keeps people going through it. So all I would ask is, there's always a few people that kind of they they go a few bubbles off the norm in terms of what they're testing and how they're trying to do the test. And sometimes the results are not necessarily what they expected. But I can tell you going through the process is the important part because next time you won't make those same mistakes. Um, and, with the addition of being able to use ChatGPT prompts to find different elements to test and put that together. Sometimes people have a tough time with what they've done with their common bonds and kind of paint themselves into a corner. And so, um, yeah, that happens too. But ultimately, these are very common things that happen, and I'm just wanting to voice them so all of you are not as, concerned, as you might be or about this, that it's not everything here is a good thing even if it doesn't look like it here, because there's a lot to learn from. Because remember, this is not about doing this one test to end all tests and never do one again. This is you learning the test to have the ability to do it again for many different ways, because you're going to want to create many different PBC combinations with which to create ads with. And that's also what we're going to cover today with tertiary testing. So you'll like that. Okay. Yup. PBC has the highest CTRL. That happens as well. And that's typically meaning it's more competitive markets where the challenge is a primary thing that moves the needle for people. Um, okay. Just making sure. Tried the scheme on a lead ad as well. So far, got my lead cost down by 50%. Now, Michael, when you say a lead ad, are you talking about like the lead form ads where you fill out the form individually, fill out the form on Facebook? Or are you talking about sending them to an opt-in on a landing page? Murray, good morning. You're all right, Chris. It's easy to feel like we've gone backwards. I'm doing my PBCs again because so much has become clear, especially my target, plus how to structure my objective and conversion event. Thanks to you. Absolutely. Uh, Rich, speaking of mistakes, I have not added my landing page to PBC 1 and 2. Can I add the landing page link to the bottom of copy 3 and keep it going forward? Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, lead ad on Facebook. Yeah. I mean, those usually are just not very high quality, you know. So your cost for a lead form ad where you have to have the lead form, those are always, even with a with an ad that's not as good, that cost is going to be a lot less than the one you would do on a landing page. But that lead, you're going to find that from lead form ads, more than half of them are junk and they won't even respond. And the quality of the leads are typically a lot less. Dave, are we chatting about post PBC headline formula test today? It was late. Apologize if I missed the plan. Oh, you haven't missed anything. We're going to go over any final CIA guidelines. I'm going to show you guys social rules of engagement. Then I'm going to show you tertiary testing. But I was just wanting to make sure if there were any, questions at the top of the call here, any thoughts, I wanted to just make sure to be aware of that. So we're going to get into this here in a moment. Uh, Asia, once our tests are complete, would you suggest some retargeting with some other combos as long as they're similar in nature to the primary winner? Um, I mean, I always think retargeting is good, but that wasn't necessarily the scope of this class, was to get into how to do a lot of the retargeting. We cover a lot of that on our code program, but I will say, obviously, targeting different things. You really got to think about your retargeting from a customer journey perspective. And retargeting post engagers with a different PBC, I am going to talk a bit about that during tertiary testing. So yes is the short answer. And once you do the tertiary testing, that's where you're going to find out about a lot of that. Yeah. Since we're starting out sales campaign objective, would it be correct that using a different objective when retargeting, since we already told Facebook to find the people that we could use an objective such as reach and still have ideal results? Asia, that is one of the better questions. Very few people ask that question. Usually I have to bring that up. I'm going to cover that today. There is essentially the answer is yes, but that's not the only thing, right? So it's kind of both. And we'll talk about it. Okay. All right. So Dr. Nick, is there anything there in the group that we need to address up front here?
Uh, Not that I've come across so far. I've just been responding to small little things, so it's all good.
Okay. All right. Cool. What I'm first going to do is so the CIA stuff, is there anything in terms of CIA questions from yesterday to clarify with that you have questions about? This is the last point to ask about CIA from yesterday. One thing I will note, when you're going through CIA, it's okay to add back in placements that have a news feed, that you have the ability, let me clarify that have the ability for someone to click more, to click see more and read the rest of the ad. There's a lot of placements like a right-hand column where you're just going to click that right-hand column ad and it'll take you straight to the landing page and you have no way to read the rest of the ad. And that's what we want to exclude during our CIA process. But what we do want to put back in, it's totally fine to put back in stories, reels. And yes, I know reels, that even images, reels, use the reels placement. IG, for the reels and stories as well. Um, Facebook profile feed, Facebook Business Explorer. The video placement usually only shows one line of text. So unless you fully translated your video and it's working, don't use the video placement with a static image ad. It's not really going to show too much anyway, although they do try to cheat like that and send your static image through the video news feed because they're trying to do all they can to cut the deck and get as many impressions as possible to charge you for it. So yeah. So Raj, do we still exclude post engagers in CIA testing? We do not. It's up to you. Who I would exclude is your buyers, but I would let the rest of your post engagers and landing page viewers who haven't bought yet to see these CIA ads. Absolutely, yeah. Because that's kind of the way it's going to be moving forward, is Facebook has tried to do all they can to eliminate having to do retargeting, where they set it up where they're still going to show a portion of your ads to your warm traffic, even if you're excluding post engagers. Right now, it's about 5% or so they say, and so the metrics report. So they're trying to stop people from having to be more sophisticated in the way that they set up their retargeting. all they've managed to do is make things worse. So we still have to do as much of that as we can. But for CIA, it's entirely okay to have warm traffic in there because that's going to be the nature of how it's going to work long term. Um, you're just going to have some traffic being shown to people who are already exposed to you. And if they respond to those images and those copy formulations, that's good. We just need to know that, right? So Dave, when doing the headline formula test, many of your framework examples look like they are for different awareness levels and audiences, i.e. mechanism probably wouldn't want to be introduced until solution aware audiences. So the thing with that is we haven't taught the levels of awareness here in the class. And so I don't want to make the assumption that everybody understands the 5 levels of awareness, which was originally taught by Eugene Schwartz in his book that we consider the marketing Bible, and it's called Breakthrough Advertising. And you can't even buy that book for less than $100 on the internet now. The late great Eugene Schwartz is probably one of my main mentors and has helped me shape and translate a lot of the messaging he taught to modern day social media. But the real thing that matters with the formulas do not, to answer your question specifically about the levels of awareness. For those of you who don't know, don't worry about this. But to clarify this for you, Dave, the elements are what are going to dictate the level of awareness more than anything else. Because it's very easy to take the same headline formula and swap out a mechanism for something else, like an ultimate benefit or something else, and it still can work with minor tweaks. And so if you understand awareness levels, then you'll be able to do that for yourself. But the formulas were obviously written for a particular ad, for a particular awareness level. But what we have found is using those formulas, we can change those awareness levels by changing the elements themselves. So you do have to look at and go, okay, is it problem aware or does it signal the solution? Okay, is it solution aware or not? Is it unaware of the problem? Um, and so on and so forth, product aware, deal aware, that type of thing. For those of you who don't know about that, don't worry. We can't get into all of that today, right? So that's deeper level stuff. What do we got? When asked, yeah, Michael bought it for $180. Yeah, yeah. Rich, yeah. So we have the examples of ads we were given the other day. We need to plug in the elements into those different ones and then test them. Not different ones. You test in your PBC. Like it's not, you're not randomly choosing stuff after your PBC test. You're going to use your pain, benefit, and challenge as exactly as they are tested in your headline formulas. But then from there, you can derive your internal feelings, right? The internal conflict and internal benefit. You can change your ultimate benefit to match if you prefer, or if your ultimate benefit still scored really well, you can still use that in your headline formulas. You can introduce your unique mechanism, the name of it, if it's relevant for you, and any of the challenges. If you need to say the solution so that people understand much more about what you're talking about, that's okay too. Usually the solution is put into a headline to be able to compare that solution to other solutions, which is usually more of a solution aware or product aware ad, for those of you who understand levels of awareness, right? But we're not going to get too deep into it, in this class. So Martina, the formula we need to use for creating various headlines, do we use the formula in the 5-dimensional ad course? The formulas are in day 7. So you can go right to day 7 at the bottom of right below the video, and there is a downloadable PDF that has the headline formulas that I taught you on day 7, on Tuesday. Greg, did you CIA's test run for 1,000 impressions? Were you here yesterday, Greg, when we went through that? So one of the things here, guys, is if you didn't attend and watch the recordings, oftentimes, people will jump in and ask a lot of the questions that we covered in the other class. So to respect the other people that were here, you're gonna have to go back and watch that. because there's a lot of guidelines about that, and you're going to want to watch that carefully. Okay. Did Nick send the link out? It's in the group right now, and he has a clarification that he ends up, just luck of the draw. He has some things happening next week, a little out of schedule from what anticipated, and so he does not have as many slots happening as usual. So
This
you
week,
definitely
but
want to
next
get
week a
your,
lot.
yeah, next week a lot. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, sorry. Next week there's fewer than usual, but the following week,
The
yeah, yeah.
following week is probably the only place where you have time right now, right? You're
Oh,
pretty
because
full out.
everyone's I think booked me out next week. So,
Okay.
but look, because there's weird times too. Because Australia, there might be some times that are AM times for the US, but they're okay for the UK or something like that, or Europe.
Totally understand. Okay. So, Greg, real quick on that for your CIA test, they're not about impressions, they're about your spend. And it's all about your target cost per acquisition and basically setting your budget up at, 1 to 2x your target CPA for day per day, what your break even point is, and running it that way. And basically you're testing it all on your cost per result and your, return on ad spend, and that's a number you have to determine for yourself. So we're not using CTR all in the CIA test as our decision-making metric. We're using our actual result that we get from here on out. And it's based on, how you set your budgets is much more about what your budget is and your break-even point is. And you're going to want to have 1 to 2x your target cost per acquisition in each of these tests, in each of these ads. Okay. That as a short way. Curtis, wait, the link to book is in the group. I thought we were only going to get an email, and I've been watching my inbox like a hawk. Yeah, I guess we just did the link, the Facebook group before we sent out an email. Yeah. The going from no Dr. Nick to to post totally cracked me up. Yeah, he does that. He can do that. So, all right.
I do it for fun. I do it for fun just to well, just to try and eat my own dog food. But you can all then also go have a look through and you can critique the ad and go, oh, what would I have written differently, or all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I ended up having to drive out right after our call yesterday, and I had to drive 2 hours down to Phoenix and go to and do something there. And then I was in that all night until late, and then I was stayed at a hotel room driving back all morning, and I only got back here till like 15 minutes before this class started. And so I didn't send out that link because Nick had told me, hey, this is what I'm doing. So I was like, okay. And once I get back here, we'll deal with that today. So I do apologize. That's really on me, not on Nick. He did his part. So I apologize. Um, yeah, Curtis, don't consider it your failure. You were expecting what you were told exactly. Yeah. Um, Curtis, I feel the same way. Out hilarious, the best way to remember the PBC formula. How going from Dr. Nick, no Dr. Nick to you. That was fine. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you guys something here. If anything trickles in about CIA questions, then we can always deal with that as we go. But I am going to show you all something here, and also when you do download the when you download the headline formulas, okay, which is in day 7. You can go there and download them. And this is just it's a PDF version of what I'm showing you right now and what we walked through on day 7 with all the headline formulas. That's what's available in day 7. It's a downloadable link. It's a blue download link below the video on day 7. That's where you can go download this PDF, right? So I'm gonna quickly teach you and cover real quickly the 5 main social rules of engagement that you need so that you don't mess this up. How about that? Okay. So, and some people, remember this. Your The way you speak to someone through social media, I have found through the data, needs to be fundamentally different than what you've been taught for traditional marketing. A lot of marketers tend to try to just fit a square peg into a round hole by using traditional direct response marketing. And in traditional direct response marketing, copywriters all agree that the most powerful word to use is the word you. And that can make sense on a sales letter, on a sales page, because someone has agreed to click over and actually choose to listen to you. However, on social media, people are not giving you permission to talk directly to them. And as we know, the data shows that people hide your post when you try to talk directly to them. What is always included in a statement that is a direct statement? The word you. So I am going to be blasphemous and absolutely heretical as an absolute marketing heretic that I am. And I'm going to tell you that using the word you is okay for your funnels and your landing pages because they've basically given consent for you to talk directly to them. But in order to avoid the high negative feedback that comes from direct language on social media, you're not going to use the word you or your in your headlines. Okay, let me show you what I mean. This is our golden rule. I people in my agency, if they do this, they are told from the day that they start, they will be fired on the spot without a warning. Okay. I made one exception for somebody that accidentally did it because I gave them another training and they followed that training. And I said, but hey, and he didn't hear the part where I said, still follow my social rules. So translate it. And he's like, oh, all right. And I was like, don't ever do it again. This is like the main thing that we teach people. So this is what makes us different. And this is how we make sure that we don't get high negative feedback. So the main thing is not to make this look like an ad. And how does it look like an ad? When you're doing these direct call outs, right? Attention coaches or business owners, are you, or hey, common bond, these are all directly speaking to them, right? Realtors looking to sell your home, they always cause a lot more negative feedback. Okay. And that negative feedback causes your ad scores to tank, right? So just keep this in mind. Here's the thing to understand about this. The news feed is not a one-on-one conversation. That's not the natural native language of social media. It never has been, it never will be. And that will be validated by the fact that anytime someone starts asking a question and being direct, assuredly it's an ad. And what are we attempting to do? We don't want to make it look like an ad because the moment someone thinks it's an ad, they have a ton of resistance to your message. They're already skeptical. You are already a suspect. And we want to bypass those filters. We do it with indirect languaging that looks much more like third person voice or a news article or telling a story. Okay. So all of this stuff about attention this or are you suffering from pain or whatever, get it out of your head. Your point, this is way too competitive of a marketplace for you to look like others. And if you do, you won't stand out, you won't get clicked. There's no way for you to differentiate yourself if your ad looks like everybody else. In a marketplace where if someone is seeing your ad, I can guarantee you, and I don't say the word guarantee very often, but I can guarantee you, because this is the way it works, that they've seen 15 other ads about the same similar offer. How are you going to be different? First rule, don't lead in like they do. That's what gives you a fighting chance. Okay? That's the first rule. Every advertiser does this. Don't do it. You want to be different. You want to zig while everyone else zags. Okay? Because what they do is exactly this. Hide ad, report ad right on their phone. That's what they do. When you start being direct, people don't like it. Now, sure, you're going to get some people that actually click. You might still get 3 out of 100 people that click on your ad because they're like, yeah, that's me and this is relevant to me. Perfect timing, right? Okay, right place, right time. That's fine. But when you see some of the click rates we have, you might even still have a 3% CTR alt, but you're not going to have the negative feedback. And the negative feedback is what sabotages your ad from running long term because because it starts to lose all the options. Okay. So does that make sense to everybody? Am I clear there? Right? How do we make this work? All right. Yes. Yes. I need more than one yes. I need more than one, guys. Since it says never start, does that mean later in the copy, like during a call to action, we can sprinkle in direct references or still never do it until they are on to give us permission on our landing page? I'm very glad, Dave, you asked that question. We do start to transition to direct language in the bottom half of our ad, or at the very least in our call to action. Okay. Martina, I think it's in day 8. You know what? You're right. You guys are right. I'm sorry. Day 8, not day 7, for the headline formulas. So day 7 was ad liquidity. Day 8 for Wednesday, day 8. That's where this document is. There's a PDF version of there for you to do. Okay. All right. Yes, 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 yes. Absolutely. Cool. Yes, definitely. Dave Smith, awesome. It was getting awkward for me at the CTA section to avoiding the direct language. No, you can naturally transition in when you're presenting the benefits. You can start saying like, this is what I have, and this, gives you these benefits. And if you don't want to experience these challenges, then pick my product up below, right? Or whatever the offer, whatever the CTA is going to be. Okay, so we make that. We make sense there. So the direct language, you just don't want to lead with it, right? It's all about the lead. It's all about that above and below creative headline, which is what in the agency we typically call the intro. The intro is another word for the above creative and below creative headline together, right? Because they're the same elements, but it's the intro. And so, yeah, go ahead, Dr. Nick. I see you unmuting.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was going to say if you want an example of what Chris is talking about, the word use of the word you and your, take a look at the the post that I put in the Facebook group inviting you to book the call, and you'll be able to look all the way through how I'm only referring to you right in the very bottom section. And that's because you and I are already connected. Like we actually already know each other, but you'll still see how I was able to write that ad without referring to you or your until right at the very bottom when I transition into inviting you to book a call.
Notice instead of saying you, he didn't say, here's how you go from, he's still using message mapping workshop students as the common bond, go from no Dr. Nick, that's painful. I happen to know from personal experience, to an actionable profit plan benefit. They are certain they'll achieve ultimate benefit, right? Using the mechanism scientific PMW program without, and he's using the price objection. Look at
Yeah.
that challenge. Okay. Personal mental wealth program is a process I've developed and used business leaders and entrepreneurs over 15 years. Oh, look at that. Some credibility. So he didn't really go to the no Dr. Nick part pain because obviously just having, none of that is really hard to substantiate. But um, other than that, it follows pretty much exactly what it should, right? So you get to read that, you'll get a little bit better of an idea of some of these ads. And remember, like if you look at these headline formulas, do you see the word you in here anywhere? Most common bond. Okay, so instead of saying, are you suffering from this? Instead, indirectly call out your avatar or your common bond. Most marketers do not realize, right? Okay, here's how even complete beginners. He's not saying, do you know what traditional ads? I'll translate each of these really quick for you. How the traditional ads most advertisers would do here, they'd say, if you're a complete beginner in real estate, or are you a beginner in real estate? Are you a beginner looking to learn to invest in real estate? Question mark. And then you're talking directly to them, and everyone's like, oh, this is an ad. They're trying to sell me something. But when you say it like this, it's like, oh, this is interesting. What's he talking about? He's not pushing up against you and being pushy. When you start asking direct questions, then people feel threatened. They don't like to be directly challenged or directly talked to when they don't know who you are. It's the equivalent of some person who's trying to get you to sign a petition approaching you on the street and you're like, get away from me, dude. Like, get away, get away. It's annoying, right? You didn't ask for them. Okay. It's the same thing here. Some of you hardcore direct response marketers are going to have a hard time with this concept. If you can embrace it, you will see the data. The data will change your freaking life. right? I know it. I've seen it so much, okay? So look at this, story-based. As a common bond, I went from this to this. There's no you, all right? Look at this. Rural homeowners, instead of saying, here's how you can get, ECHO grants to replace insulation and heating systems. Or you say, are you a homeowner? Or attention homeowners. That's what everyone else does. Right here, you already have an advantage by not sounding and looking like everybody else, yet you are still doing the core thing of identifying your avatar and contextualizing it even more than a lot of the other ads that say, are you a business owner? Here, get my, whatever 3-step formula, or learn how to do this. And they still only go a couple dimensions or a couple elements, whereas we are always shooting to at least have 4 to 5 elements in our headlines. Okay. Same thing here. Here's why our Facebook ads, right? We're using inclusive language. We're using we, our, or pointing to somebody else in terms of our avatar. Or here, we don't use an avatar and we go directly to the pains and benefits and challenges, which signal to someone, yeah, that's the problem I have. Yeah, that's what I want. Yes, I want that. I don't want that challenge anymore. That works for me, right? Same thing here. Are you a personal trainer who hates doing one-on-one sessions? You may still get the same click rate, but at volume, you're going to get a lot more negative feedback. And you're going to get a lot more resistance from those who read that direct language, and your conversion rates will not be as high because they're already suspect of you. They're already skeptical of you because you sound like an ad. Okay. So what is our second social rule of engagement? Stephen, some of these headlines don't have all the 3 of the PBC. I'll talk about that. So lead with inclusive language. Use we or I or your common bond instead of where you would normally think to use the word you. Okay. Never use you or your in your engage. Okay. In the engage, the intro, the above and below creative headlines. Okay. We sometimes call it the engage. Sometimes we call it the intro, and sometimes we just say above and below creative headlines. You can be used further along in your body copy, preferably the bottom half or just the convert or the call to action section. Okay. Now, using you proves to be too direct. Okay. If you write indirectly, you get less negative feedback. You get a better sustainable ad that wins more auctions with higher scores because of the lack of negative feedback, and scale ads. Like, think about it this way. When I was working as a kid, we had a family business, and I was working with my uncles, and it was an insulation company up in Alaska. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska. Insulation sound like a good idea up in Alaska, right? So it was a decent business. And my uncle, when I did something wrong, he'd yell and scream at me, right? Which shaped me to be like, I need to be my own boss because I cannot take being yelled at like that. I am not going to take this the rest of my life. But something he said to me really stuck with me. He said, look, you can do all the things right, but one screw up deletes and takes away 10 attaboys. Okay. So it's the same thing where you can do all these things right, but if you piss somebody off or you screw up, that's the thing that's going to be remembered. What I'm attempting to do for you here is help you understand how to not screw this up. Okay. So this is learning how not to lose, which is the first module in the 5-dimensional ad. For those of you who've gone through it, you know that. You first need to learn how not to lose before you can win. That's what I'm doing here. Okay. All right. Next thing, keep the above and below creative headlines congruent with each other, right? So just like in one of the examples here, like they're just very similar. You're not changing out elements. You saw that with all of the other ads, right? Keep your above and below creative headlines as similar as possible. When you are done doing all your testing and you're out of CIA, you can make minor adjustments to test different combinations, especially if you need to use a button and you need to cut out some elements. So that's fine to do if you need to, but it's not the first place you want to go. You want to make sure you know exactly what your elements are and then extrapolate from there later, okay? And build off of that. All right, so I know there's a lot of text there. I basically said the point of it. You don't need to read all that. You can go back. You'll have this, so you can go read all this. I'm not trying to have you read. It's just a big blocks of text. It's not that good. I need to get, pictures for it anyway. Next thing here, this is why most people get their ads shut down, because they give a promise, they give a claim. One of the most classic ones I've seen a lot is like in the make money online niches, they promise money, which is going to get you shut down every time, right? Get my $500 a day formula. You can't promise someone's going to make $500 a day. According to the FTC, the only promise you can make is the one that 100% of people will experience as just from buying your product, like what's delivered to them, literally like the modules. Like you get this training, okay? But if you try to make a claim that says like, hey, you can make up to this amount of money per day, Facebook's going to shut you down. Okay, so it's the same thing with weight loss. You can make lose 10 pounds a day here, guaranteed. You're going to get shut down within seconds of submitting that ad, right? You cannot promise those things. So keep that in mind. That is why 70 to 80% of all ads are disapproved, is because you're giving claims and promises that you cannot back up. So how do we get around that? How do we do this? How do we still give a benefit? How do we still give a claim without directly doing it? It's in the way that it's worded. And now, stay with me, everyone. This is where not using the word you comes back into play very, very well. Because the moment you use the word you is the moment Facebook's text scanner and their guidelines say that you are now promising, because you're connecting them to the promise. So here's what we would do instead, right? A good example before I go there is, I had a client who said, he was, and I might have mentioned this earlier in the class, he was selling his music, and he was teaching people how to get their songs, independent music artists, how to get their songs on all the streaming networks and how to make money from that. And he made a claim saying, how I made, 40 something thousand dollars last year from streaming alone. And then he had a version that said, and how you can too. The how you can too version got his ad account banned. Not just the ad disapproved. He had to wait to get his ad account back, and it took him months. Okay. But the version that did not say and how you can too worked really well. So what did we do instead in the other version? We did the concept, and this is the last rule I'm going to teach you here today about this, is the concept of make the mechanism the hero. Okay. So the wrong way is when you use the word you and you say something like how you can generate $5 leads, right? First off, you shouldn't be using the word can because it weakens the sentence. That's a copy thing, but nevertheless, that'll get you shut down because you're promising them $5 leads. Instead, you can tell a personal story, or you can say what the result is, but you can't tie it to them. You get to say this 3-step process generates high value leads. Okay, or you could even say this 3-step process generates $5 leads for me. And if you say then, let me give you this 3-step process, that is compliant. And so for my music streaming artist client at the time, when he said, I made 40 something thousand dollars in streaming last year, let me teach you the exact process I used to accomplish that. That ad still runs. What did I not use in there? Direct language. I did not tie it back to somebody in particular. I didn't say you. That is most of the time when people come to me and they're like, hey, I heard you're the guy that helps us fix these issues. And I'm like, pull it up, show me what your ad is. Within seconds, I'm like, oh yeah, you made a claim there that's tying it to them. And that's what you did, which is what traditional marketing teaches you. But you can't do it here. Okay. So if you're in some of those niches where you're promising results of money or weight loss or other things that are very, very competitive, you're going to get dinged. They're going to get you. You have to take the direct language out of it. This is the smart way. You notice how I make the mechanism the hero. I'm not saying you can do this. I'm saying this mechanism accomplishes this thing. Let me give you the mechanism. Are you all getting this? Does this make sense about how to make the mechanism the hero? Please tell me yes or no in the chat, and be honest. If it's no, please say so. Look at that. Yes is down the road. Dave Smith value bomb. Yes, 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 yes. 100%. Okay. So yes, explains a few ads I have had shut down. Yep. And inevitably, that's what happens. Okay. So there it is. This is all inside that PDF that you get to download from day 8. So you'll be able to go through and read all of this stuff, okay, if you like. FTC is all about looking into ads like this. You mean the ones that say you? Yeah. The FTC is going pretty hard right now on people. I've heard of like 3 other companies that just got popped. Yeah. So Meta scans landing pages and even videos on landing pages. They do. They absolutely do. So you can't do the same thing on your pages. You've got to use this same make the mechanism the hero concept. This gets you past all of the scammers that go and buy 100 accounts and spam everywhere with crazy things like Viagra or make money online stuff. And they're giving all these promises and they get many accounts shut down every day and they're spinning up new accounts and they're playing this crazy game because they just won't follow something that keeps them, you know, that keeps them compliant. So Greg says, are case studies okay? Case studies are okay. They're totally good to do. You just have to frame it to where you cannot tie that promise of what they got back to these people. Instead, you need to make sure that you say, the reason they got this case study is because of this unique mechanism. Let's give you this same mechanism. Okay. So now I'm gonna go into tertiary testing and show some of you how cool this shit actually is. Okay, here we go. It might take a quick moment here, having to get logged into this meeting ID. In the meantime, Dr. Nick, has there been any other questions in there that we need to address? 23593. Sorry, guys, I can't multitask too well, in case any of you have noticed.
Recording in progress.
Let me get it. It makes me have to manually disconnect the audio now rather than giving me the choice when it pulls up. So it's always weird because it's like a hidden place where I have to go click into something to disconnect the audio. So yeah, sorry about that. All right. Here we go. Share. I don't like this on the bottom. It's not as cool. I like the menu at the top, not the bottom. All right. So let's get into tertiary testing. Tertiary testing is the art of finishing out partial tests that allow you to define new PBCs. Okay. So some of you have seen what we're looking to accomplish right now is this concept. Most ads, okay, let's just say this is an ad, right? Someone's in here, this is the ad. And you have a market of people. Some of you have seen this on my sales page. Most people create one good ad, right? And then they take it to a massive market of people and hope that that ad appeals to everybody. And in order for it to do so, it has to be very broad and not specific, because if it's specific, it typically alienates too many people in their mind, they think, which that's not the reality, but you know, it is what it is. And what happens is one ad, let's say you're optimizing for leads. Well, in any given audience, your ad is going to go for leads to about 20 to 30% of the audience. That's even pretty large for that. Um, that's way more than 20%. So 20 to 30%. With purchase optimization, you're lucky if you're getting 5 to 10% of an overall audience. And why is that? Because 5 to 10% of people are the ones that are willing to buy something in any given set of data or group of people, right? Out of 1 million people, there's about 100,000 that could or would even buy anything. The vast majority of people are not going to buy anything, right? So you have to think about that with your audiences. But what that means is you're going to get like a portion, like 10% of people you're going to get through one ad. And it's even less than 10% because Facebook is scanning the text, and then its own bias says, well, we only think this smaller amount of people are going to react to that ad. This is the principle of over optimization that is a double-edged sword for our marketing. It allows us to get really good cost per acquisition because Facebook knows how to target the people that are the highest probability to convert. So we get spoiled with that. But yet, the double-edged sword about that is that they will only go to the people that are the highest probable to convert. And then once they've gone through those people, they will just continue to show the same ad to those same people. And then eventually people see the ad enough, and then they start hiding the post because they get sick and tired of seeing it, or reporting you as spam because they're annoyed by you, which happens at a much faster rate when you're using direct language. And because of that, then your ad starts working against you because it's causing you to get really high negative feedback scores, which lower your overall auction bid rates. So the thing that we found different is that when we create different ads like this, PBC1 might be my original PBC test. Then I might have another PBC2 that has a different challenge. And then I have another one that has maybe the second place benefit and a different challenge. So it's another PBC, a different PBC than these other two. And maybe there's one down here that has the second place winner of the pain, which I then did a benefit and challenge test to finish out a full PBC test with, to define PBC4. And the same goes for over here, where I might do the second place winner and maybe it's the second place benefit. And then I did another challenge, I did a benefit test and then a challenge test. And I found a new PBC, right? So 5 different PBCs where there's different combinations of elements, but they're all fully tested. Remember, we don't just grab like a random second place benefit and decide that that's going to win and go throw that everywhere. It's always the combination of pain, benefit, and challenge that make the difference. So what happens here, and Stephen, I will come back around to your thing about like, I see some of your formulas don't have PBC. I'm going to get to that in just a moment, okay? So now with this, I'm going to see if I can speed this up. I have another way to do this. It's a little faster. Yes, a lot faster. These are all people, right? These are all people in a big audience. So here's the reality of how this plays out when you have different PBCs. Sometimes you're going to get people who respond to this ad. There's going to be a portion of them that do. And then there's going to be another portion when you do a new PBC that some of these people may have even seen the ad and did not respond to because it wasn't the messaging that worked for them. So then you're going to send this second ad over, and what's going to happen is you may have a little bit of an overlap where you had shown the ad to some of these people, but they didn't respond, but they responded to this second ad. And the algorithm now reads different elements, and so it decides to show this ad to different people that your first ad never got shown to. Is that concept making sense there? This is how you scale. It's not through trying to find fresh audiences. It's better to let the thing be much more broad and wide open, and then you have specific messages that reach out and find different pockets of these people in this larger audience. This is how you can go back to an audience that you may have been hammering with your one good ad, right? And it wasn't working. And you felt like you've burned it out. Your frequencies are way up at 3.5. And you're like, yeah, I can't go back to that audience. They've all seen my ad. They're not responding anymore. Au contraire, mon frère. This time, a new message starts to resonate with some of those people that never responded before. Okay. This is how you can go back to the same audience and pull out new people that may have seen your other ads, but that message set, that PBC was not enough for them to click because it didn't appeal to them. Maybe it might have been that it wasn't the main benefit that was important to them. It may have been that the challenge wasn't the primary challenge that they're experiencing. So the thing I want to instill here is, in no case ever, never is it a winner take all scenario. If you've been sold this dream where people tell you, or trainers tell you, because they know this is what they can do with good marketing, is tell you you only need one good ad. And then you just need to use that ad to scale everywhere, take it everywhere, and continue to run. And you don't have to do anything else because this one ad is just going to continue to get sales forever. That is a fantasy world. Okay. That is not reality. Okay. You might as well go hang out with the flat earthers. Really. It's not reality. Okay. That's not the way the world works. That math doesn't math. Okay. But what does math is what we do. And we have millions of ad spend to back this up. Obviously, I cannot show you a lot of examples because I have to keep the privacy of my clients and their confidentiality. I wish I could show you more examples. But nevertheless, I'm telling you, if you trust what I've taught you so far to see that it works, trust me now when I tell you that. So this is the concept we're looking to do, okay, is create new PBC sets, or what we like to say, message sets, right? And a message set, sometimes we call them minimum viable messages, right? I kind of like the sound of that, you know. Um, let's see here. I'm just making sure are we good in the chat here, Nick, with everything?
Yes, we are.
Right on. Um, when you say broad and wide open, is gender and age considered broad and wide open? Yeah. Like typically gender and age, if it's relevant, like I would still consider that broad and wide open, maybe an age group, yeah. Okay, cool. So who would that be doing my best Dr. Evil pinky to mouth? Yeah, Dave, we're just gonna, I love these people. I can't help that they haven't moved on. They're still clinging to what, they know is a good marketing hook to serve themselves rather than evolving to serve you. It's just the reality of it. All right. So you all get the concept here. This is what we call message scaling. This is how you scale. Okay? And what's beyond message scaling is when you start to use this message in different formats, right? Use your PBC body copy and make one of those carousels where you have text, 10 slides, Instagram carousels. Those are hot. They work. If you can make your ad work, you have to validate it through your ad first, through your PBC body copy. If your ad works better, then go try carousels. And then turn that into a video, turn it into a reel, right? Whether it's face to camera or you have text on the popping up in a caption, right? With B-roll footage. We do all of those. All of that comes into play. But if you don't have the core message, then what you're going to do is you're going to copy all these people that say these dumb things in their ads, and then you look like everyone else, and then you walk away with you saying reels don't work, or carousels don't work, or ads don't work. No, it's because you didn't make it work. Because it's about the message. The message creates the understanding. The message creates the context. The message is what carries the click. The message is what creates the sale. All right? So yeah, you can translate this a lot of ways, but you always want to validate it first, the cheapest and most effective way by doing your PBC body copy. And for those of you who want to really become an expert social media copywriter, where you learn how to write much longer long form ads and do it in a way where you don't screw it up, because that's the bigger thing. A lot of people will say, oh, no one's going to read all that. Yeah, they do. We do a lot of ads where we're like 6, 7, 800 words long, and we literally send them directly to checkout pages. I literally had to do this when I was running digital marketers ads. They had a sales page that just sucked. They had a junior copywriter that was new and it was just not good. It wasn't converting. And so I took it upon myself to write all of the copy in a very indirect storytelling way and sent them directly to the checkout page. I went around their sales page and I made the cost per sale much, much lower. What was hilarious about that is the director of marketing then came on to praise the junior copywriter, thinking that the sales were coming from his sales page because I didn't tell him. I had to eventually tell him later, like, hey man, we're not even using the sales page. I actually did a better job in less words in the news feed and went directly to the checkout page. But see, I know how to do that because I've studied and refined this over 12 years. I've been doing this since 2011, so maybe 13 years now, long form ads and refining them into what works right now. So talk to Dr. Nick about those things where you can learn that stuff with us. You can always ask him about that when you do your one-on-one call. And if you are a candidate for that, he can always give you that info. Wait, a 10-minute slide carousel to help test prior to video. You need to zoom in on that for a minute. Did I just give away a secret there? If you've seen people do these Instagram carousels, where they've got text and it's like just text, white text backgrounds, where do you think that came from? It's the same thing where you see these long story ads from Facebook for years and then they're like pitching you some product at the end of it. And you're like, I didn't even know this was an ad. Where do you think they learned that? That was from me. Now, am I the only one that does text carousels? No. But using our process, you can validate your ad over here as a Facebook newsfeed ad, and then you break that text up to fit inside here. But you got to make it work on your ad first. Okay. We have a guy right now that runs to he does posts, ads just like this, and he runs to a checkout page. He has a 22% conversion rate to a $7 offer. And it was like cost of like $30, but he had a good upsell process. So that worked, that the numbers worked for him. He then took that same ad that I helped him refine because he went through my program and he turned it into a carousel and he was getting even better costs and better upgrades. Then, so it was even better. Then he took that exact text and did B-roll footage of his client with the exact text as text overlay on a reel. Guess what happened? He cut his cost to acquire a sale in half. You see, it's all about the message. Okay. Now, you may be able to do this without learning all of that if you can make your PBC body copy work really well. Some of you will do it. Some of you might need a little more help. But either way, This is how you can translate this message to different formats. You can take these reels and go put them on other platforms. You can go to TikTok. We've talked about multi-platform. You can go to YouTube. You can go to YouTube Reels, YouTube Shorts, which is just a reel. Use the same thing. But what matters is the message. You set the right context. All right. Now, let me actually get into the actual tertiary testing. So if I understand correctly, if PBC1 had similar CTR all for 4 of them, I should then test the second best CTR all with the benefit and challenge test again, then find the winning combo and then do the copy based on the second winning combo, which this time around could be made up of different pains, benefits, challenges. Martina, you're exactly right. So let me show you how to do that. Okay. So let's get down to business. All right. So we've got our PBC1, right? We've got our, well, PBC, it's finished, right? So that's there. Now, what the first thing you want to think about is you're basically finishing out new versions and variations of your original PBC test. The only time you're going to do a new PBC test is if you've thought of or identified a bunch new pains that you did not test before, or it's a different offer. Okay, you've already done a lot of the heavy lifting. So what we do is we work backwards from our original PBC. There's a lot of gold to dig out of that before you have to start a new PBC test. In most cases, there's always exceptions to everything, but in most cases, work back from our original PBC. So what's the first thing we would do? So let's say you did PBC1 and PBC2, right? Pain 1, benefit 1, and then you had challenge 1. And instead, you look at your second place challenge and see how that tested. If it's still tested high, you already have your second PBC set ready to go if it's acceptable. And you can do that with as many of the challenges that test within a 10 to 15% and sometimes even 20% range of variance. So let's say your PBC1, P1, B1, C1 gave you a 5% CTR all. If your C2 challenge test 2 was at least above 4%, I would probably still go do that and do a CIA to that particular one. Okay. Now, if you have room, which you should be able to because it would only be 4 elements, if both of those click rates on your challenge were really good, then what you can also do is combine them, right? C1, C2, and that's 4 elements. If you have room to be able to do that, then you're good to go. All right. So you can combine them if they tested well. Okay. We like to do that with the challenges. We like to do that with the benefits at times. Okay. So what would you be doing? You would basically be saying without challenge 1 and challenge 2. Real simple. Now, so that's 2 of them right there, right? That's 2 different ones right away without even doing tests. And of course, this is different for everybody, depending on where your scores were. And honestly, if something was like, 3.9, I'd probably still like, hey, it's still showing a decent number way above average, right? LA Connect TV. This is the OG winner that is on the screen now. OG winner? Yeah, like I think if I understand the original. Well, I know what OG means, but like I'm just making sure I understand what your question is. So we have our original PBC, P1, B1, C1, right? That's literally like in terms of ranking, right? It's the PBC that won. But then if in our challenge test, there's a second challenge that's really close in our click rates, we can create PBC, but then just replace the first place challenge with the second place challenge. That's what this is. And the option is that those are within like a 20% variance in terms of their click rates, CTR alls, then I would look at combining the challenges if it applies. Okay. Which is where if you know, challenge one winner would gave you a full 5% PBC, and then challenge two in your testing showed, you know, 4% or above, as an example, which is like a 20%, you know, variance. You don't have to be exact. If it's a 21% variance, then frickin' do it. You know, like, let's not be too scientific. Let's not let those rigid guidelines stop us. If it's close, you know, horseshoes and hand grenades, right? Um, but then the third thing I can do is take the winning PBC from the original, and then the second challenge that tested at second place, which is what this C2 here is, challenge second place winner, which was giving me a 4%, and I can just combine them into my CIA headline formulas. Just put in two of them, modify the formula, which is entirely okay to do. You can change those formulas around to make it work for you all you like. Those formulas are not magic formulas. They are examples to show how they get put together, but you can change the connecting words. You can change the words that are in red or in black, right? You can change all of those words to make it fit and work. I'm just giving you a starting point, right? Those formulas are not magic. They're not meant to be that rigid. Okay. It's just the structure of them, is the process, the sequence of them. Sometimes we find that starting with the benefit works better than starting with the pain. And we mentioned the benefit before we even mentioned the pain. In some cases, that works well. In others, mentioning the common bond and the pain first in the headline formula works even better. So, and then David, are you adjusting body copy with that? Yes. So anytime I change this, I'm going to adjust my body copy in my CIA test before I run my CIA test. So when you have a defined PBC, whenever you have a defined PBC that you've tested, when you're taking it to CIA, you're always going to adjust your body copy to match whatever your elements are. And so if you're stacking both of them together, you're just adding in that challenge. And it may very well be that you had added in that second challenge into your body copy in the first place because it just kind of naturally fit and it was easy to throw it in there in one line, and you know that it was a primary one based on past experience. You may not even have to change your body copy much at this phase. But you can see here, I'm working backwards. I'm not starting with new pains. That's the point here. I'm working backwards from the challenge. And I'm taking stock of my challenges first to see which ones are worth putting together or separating out into separate PBC sets. Okay. So let's say we've done that and we found 3 different message sets. We've got our original PBC up here that won in the test. We then looked at our second place winner. It's within range, and so we're good. We got a second PBC, and then we decided to stack them together. That's just one way to do it. The real decision making here is based off, does it fit within the click rates? Are the CTR all showing that it's decent? So you want to maximize any of the challenges that show a decent click rate for you, that's acceptable to you. There have been times that the second or the third place challenge in terms of the CTR alls ends up being the one that gets the best cost per result. It does happen. Not always, and not the majority of the time, but it has been known to happen. So just doing your main PBC and never doing any other PBCs is a mistake. Because if you finish out from this main PBC test and find and extract other PBC combinations, you'll find at times that some of these things just work better for the buyers, even though they didn't have the highest click rate. Most of the time, the highest click rate does correlate to the best results, but there are exceptions, and I just want you to be aware of that. So if you're like, Chris, you scammed me. My third place challenge is the one that's getting me the best sales. Don't say I didn't say it wasn't possible, because it is. Okay? So now let's say we've briefed our challenges and we've addressed the challenges that are relevant, and we got a few different PBC sets out of it. Maybe you only had one challenge that did well and the rest of them were really low scoring. You're like, okay, maybe I didn't get all the challenges right. Then let's move backwards. So we go back from challenge. Oh, So we go back from challenge back to benefits. So what could happen here is we now have our same pain one as an example, and then we see the benefit number 2 in our benefit test, okay? And the score is really close. It's within that 10 to 20% range, right? It might be really close. It might be, 3% off from the winner. Okay, there's gold in there, right? So we might take what was already tested was the pain one and the benefit two and do another challenge test with benefit two. Because see, we've done it with benefit one in our original test, but now you can use benefit two and then you do your challenge tests. You might have 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever challenges, and you just now go run a PBC 3, which is a challenge test. You just do that part over again because you have a new benefit combination that you're testing. You've already tested the benefit with that pain. So all you have to test is, the different challenges and see which one wins. And you assess it the same way you would assess your original. Now, as an example, let's say that you found 2 more that scored really high. All right, you can now do the same thing as you did here with that new benefit the same way, where you're now going to be able to have 2 or 3 more PBC sets where you use them separately, and you can even try to combine them. Now, just by the math, the possibilities means you have like 5 or 6 different PBCs, and all you did was another challenge test. That's it. And you have like 5 different ones. Okay. Are you getting the concept here of how easy this is just to go back and finish out a particular string of tests? Tell me yes in the chat if this makes sense so far. What if my top 3 challengers are close, but they don't have enough room to fit together or don't make sense together? Martina, it's a good point. So we're going to get into some of the reasons why we can rearrange the headline formulas, and you may be looking to cut things. Okay. And so you might have to cut a pane or something else in order to do this. That's a part of working that in, and you get better at that over time, where you find words that have less letters, even if it's the connecting words that you're using, right? A lot of people like to say the word experience, experience benefits. Well, instead, I like to say enjoy because it's literally half the letters. And if it's a negative where you're like experience pain, I like to say endure instead of experience because it's half the letters. That is some of the stuff you're going to want to get used to thinking about, is going to the synonym sites and finding words that cut down the letters. And if you still have words that cut down letters, the tiebreaker there is the one that has the less syllables so that it's easier to read. Words with more syllables are harder to read and scan. Okay? Martina, in my pain test, all 5 of them were very close. Does that mean I could test, for example, P1, B1, C2, P2, B1, C2, P3, B1, C2, and so on? No, you're doing that backwards. What you would do is, after you've done what we've done here with your challenges and your benefits with that same pain one, the next phase is that, the next phase would be like, okay, well, is benefit 3, did that test well with pain 1? Is that click rate acceptable? Is it within 10 to 20% of my CTR all? Is it worth doing another challenge test around that, just like you did with B2? So you're still going to work backwards, Martina, and we will get to your pains in a moment. You still want to do this and maximize everything you can from your first pain test, okay? Because this is you running less tests and spending less money before you're starting back again. Okay, I'm trying to show you to be as efficient with your spend as possible. Yes, concept is clear. Yes, yes, yes. Dave, so much better than randomly testing static templates. Oh, Dave, you have no idea, man. Like, this is the point right now, right? What if you were just trying to use the original methods of brainstorm a bunch of hooks and throw it all up there and see what works? You have no reasoning to understand why that hook worked well unless you deconstruct it and try to find the elements in it. This way we have everything we're doing here with these things, extracting these, it is the highest probability to work. So that's why we start working backwards from the highest probability PBCs with the less work or spend we need to define them. As you work back, the more you work back to your pains, the more money you're going to spend. But why would you do that if you have data that shows you have possible combinations that are also going to work well, that have already been tested, such as the case that you already have benefit 2 tested from your original benefit test? Why not go utilize benefit 2 and just do one challenge test? And if your benefit 3 works well, after you finish out extracting challenges and finding combinations, you do it with benefit 3 if the CTR-alls are acceptable. So you don't have to go back and do a full pain test, spending so much money every time you do a new PBC. See how that works? I know some of you had a tough time because you're like, man, I'm spending so much money. My CPMs are so high during this test. A lot of that is because we're isolating just the news feed. That is the real true cost typically. And then they cut the deck with all these other placements when you use Advantage Plus placements. And they're charging you for cheap impressions on right-hand column and other things. And that's really, when you look at the data, the sales still typically come from the news feed. Like all the other ones really don't get you a lot of sales. Sometimes the stories do, sometimes the reels do, because you can click see more and read the ad, right? And get pre-qualified. But a lot of the other placements do not have that option, okay? So once I have that and I've exhausted my benefits, right? I've exhausted my benefits and I've been able to use however many benefits tested well in my CTR all from my original pain test and then moved forward and did challenge tests with them. Let's say I might have gotten a couple, and I got a few more PBC sets that test very strong. Okay, cool. Sometimes one of these challenge tests, you'll find that CTR all gets higher than your original PBC up here. That's going to happen too. And some of you would be like, well, Chris, doesn't that devalidate your process of saying follow it, with the best place winner, first place winner to make a PBC? No, it does not validate that logic because I'm giving you a very efficient way based on data on how to test things. Do you see the amount of combinations you can do partial tests to finish out without having to do full PBCs? And it's based on the probability that these elements are going to work. Like every single combination has a high propensity to actually work for you instead of randomly testing stuff. Isn't it cool that you could use 3 different challenges from the same PB and find different people in a niche that may have 3 major challenges that they need overcome? That's fine, right? Here's the concept of that before we go to the pain test, okay? Here's the concept of that. This might actually blow your mind. So let's say you have an ad that just has a pain and a benefit, okay? P and B, right? Pain and benefit in there. And you had a 10% CTR all, okay? Really high, extremely high. And then you did a PBC and it went like this. The challenge winner had 7%. And the second place winner, challenge 2, had 6.5. And challenge 3 had 6. Right? And then challenge 4 was like way down at 4%. And then challenge 5 was, 3. All right, cool. We basically got within variance 3 different ones here, right? Think about it this way. In order for someone to make a buying decision, they need these challenges and objections to be answered, or else they're just not going to buy because they still have questions. Is it like this other product where I'm going to experience the same pain or the same problem? Is it, I have an objection. Does this cost the same, or is this like going to take as much time to implement, or am I going to get the same similar type of outcome? All of these things are what people need to finally make a buying decision. This is why I gave you the benefit, there's gold in that, of the decision triggers. Do you remember the bonus of decision triggers that you got? This is where that comes into play. That helps you brainstorm challenges in the first place, and sometimes even pains, but it helps you also with formulating your offer when you understand these core basic motivations that people have. Use that. Go watch that. It's a quick training, right? And it's always served me well, except for the budget part. Anna, yes, basically I'm testing the rest of my life. Not really. There's a time for it. We do it all quickly within a few weeks, and then we're pretty much off and running with different PBC sets. Pretty logical and straightforward. Murray, yes, it's liberating, cuts all the pressure as to why nothing else worked because it's data, tests, and then data, tests and data, etc., which produces multiple tested, proven, reliable options. Then CIAs added on top. Martina, think you got it. Yep, Murray, you're exactly right. You're getting the concept as to how powerful this is and how much money this saves you. As expensive as it may be to run these tests, it more than makes up for it in the results it's going to give you long term. Okay. And it's still better than just randomly testing tons of hooks. You have no way forward, no way to be like, okay, let's debrief that and figure out how to move forward. Oftentimes it ends there, like, oh, this tested the best. Use that. Why did it work? I don't know. It just seems to work. All right, run it everywhere. It's it's like it's like grade school reasoning, you know? Kelly, worth literally millions, yes. And Greg, yes, you exclude the losers quicker this way. Absolutely. And Martina, you got it. So many permutations. That's great. So let's go here again, right? So you might have a pain and a benefit that gives you a 10% CTR all, but you have no challenges. Let's say it was a benefit test. And you're like, I want that 10% CTR all. No, you don't, because that challenge may not have been addressed. And so you may not necessarily get sales or leads from it because they need more in their decision making. Okay. But some of you have aptly already jumped ahead and you saw where I'm going here. Um, funny, yeah, Stephen. That add these up. 7, okay? 7% plus running a separate PBC2 with the second place challenge at 6.5. What is that? 13 and a half? And then another 6% added to 13 and a half gives you 19 and a half. What is that? That's 19 and a half. Let's just round it up. 20. You are doubling the amount of people that you are specifically reaching out to with an ad that is much more likely to get you a conversion because you are now more specific with addressing these challenges that they may not even have clicked on because their challenge was not addressed in the original pain and benefit. Or if it was, they didn't find what they were looking for and get their challenge addressed, so they chose not to move forward. But doing it this way, specifically, we doubled the amount of people who are paying attention. That maths. You're welcome, Curtis. Dave, mic drop. So, Rajesh, but if the cost per click was much higher for, okay, you're going to get into the minutia here, but if the cost per click was much higher for challenge 2 compared to challenge 1, even with similar CTR all, is it still valid to test the higher cost one? Yes. I do not consider the cost per click in any of my metrics unless it's exorbitantly high, which typically means my link click-through rate is really low or my CTR all is very low. It's just a simple ratio. And so you need to delete this whole thing about cost per click out of your head. It is old and outdated and does not work for social media algorithms. It doesn't factor in. It doesn't matter because what will happen is maybe even your challenge 3 in this scenario here, that might get you the highest cost per click and the lowest cost per result. You don't know that until you do it. It's not about the cost per click at all. because these people are going to convert at a higher rate, which means your cost per acquisition will more than likely go down than up. It's not about measuring your cost per click at all. I don't even consider or look at the cost per click. Haven't for years and years. Does that make sense, Rajesh? So you're testing less ad sets with second and third place winners in a new PBC without the 5 ad sets that are more costly and still going to 1,000 CP. Let's see. You're not slow, Raj. Oh, Rich. So you're asking that. Yeah, I saw the R and okay. So Rajesh, does that make sense? Let me know. Um, so Rich, so you're testing less ad sets with second and third place winners. Well, you don't have to. You could still do 5 to 8 ad sets, but what you're doing is you're only doing 1 test rather than 3 tests. So it's a third of the cost. You're not doing a full PBC test every single time. That's what I'm teaching you here is to be able to extract from the tests you've already done and just finish out the ones that the data tells you it's worth testing. That's all this is, right? I'm just working backwards. So if we continue on, and now let's say you finished out doing your benefits here, and you've tested those and all the subsequent challenges that go along with it, and you have yourself a handful of different PBCs. You see like the endless amount of PBCs you can create. That's when you then go back and you say, okay, my pain test, I had a second place winner that was pretty close. Not as good as my first one, but pretty dang close. Okay, now let's take the pain test and do a new benefit test. Where here now it's, benefit 1, benefit 2, and each one is an ad set, just like a regular PBC process. Benefit 4, let's say you only did 4, right? Okay, cool. Then you find that combination. Let's say pain 2 and benefit 2 was the winner in that test, and then you finished out with a challenge test. So you did 2 tests. You did a benefit test and a challenge test. You already tested pain 2. It's just finishing out the test. The most efficient way is to start up here with the challenges because you only have to do 1 test. That's why it's better to find those PBC combinations first. Then once you do that, then move back to the benefits and do new challenge tests with the second or the third place benefit. And then after you've exhausted the benefits that have shown to test very well and you finished out challenge tests with those, then you will go back to your second place pain and you'll do a benefit test and then finish out with a challenge test where you'll do 2 instead of 3. You could continue on if your pain 3 scored really high too. You might even be able to go, like you said, Martina, to you had 4 of them that were really close. But before you go back to pain 2, pain 3, and pain 4, I want you to maximize the challenges first so you're not spending extra money you don't need to without being able to make it back from the tests you have already done. And that's why you do these things first. So all we're doing is working back from challenge, back to benefit, back to pain, and then choosing the next best one and finishing out the test. This literally can give you like 10 to 15, 20 different PBC versions. Now, are all of them guaranteed to work? No, but most of them always do work really well. And compare that to just randomly throwing 18 different hooks at an ad and seeing which one gets you the best cost per link click. Yeah, not even close. Asia, so when testing all the things we've covered between PBC, image, copy, all the stuff you went over today, does it all go down in the same campaign or will they start to compete against each other somehow? Asia, it's a great question. Okay. Keeping them in the same campaign is fine to do until there's not a real right or wrong, but I usually like to keep things that have the same offer in the same campaign. But there are times that if my pain is drastically different, if let's say I do a second pain, let's say I decide to do a pain test and that pain number 2 is drastically different, I might choose to go do a new campaign then. But for the most part, I'm going to keep them in the same campaign. Raj, just needed to test a body copy that matches the PBC. Yeah, you're right about that. Like that's the thing. The cost per link click. See, you said cost per click, but you didn't say cost per link click. The cost per link click is much more dependent upon if you did everything right in your body copy. Because if you said something in your body copy that makes people leave and you filtered them and they said, oh, this is not for me, or this doesn't make sense, or you said something that wasn't relevant to your elements and people are like, this isn't exactly what I thought what I was clicking on, then yeah, they're not going to click the link. And so your cost per link click is going to go up. But that has nothing to do with your PBC test. That's about your body copy and making sure you don't screw it up in terms of making sure you lead people through a logical thought process and a point of logical conclusion. Okay. So Rich, still going to 1,000 CPMs? Yeah. Yeah, thousand impressions. Yes. Yes, I heard what you meant, right? Um, okay, Asia, there we go. All right. So I'm guessing Nick had to step away for a moment. But this is essentially the concept of tertiary testing, which allows you to create many different PBCs. These all could be from different challenges or second place benefit, second place, third place benefit, second place pains. It's really up to you. You just want to continue to work backwards sequentially through the data. If you have a benefit test and your benefit number 2 winner is within an acceptable CTR all to you, go for it. If benefit 3 is, cool, you don't have to do a new benefit test yet. You're saving money because the data is already there and all you have to do is a challenge test. You can literally create so many of them. And if you run out of them and you've literally gone through like 4 panes or 5 panes, find some more panes. It doesn't really ever have to end. So now that you know this, I'll give you this piece, which is there is with like panes, right? Sometimes we're really trying to identify which direction to go. So our pains are very different, right? Like with someone who's selling fitness offers, their pains might be like, lose body fat, burn fat, lose weight. Actually, it's not a good one, but I'm just going to say, burn fat. Those are 2 different pains. Well, actually, I'm sorry, burn fat. Look at me. Look at me. That's a blasphemy. That's a benefit, right? Um, with, you know, someone with extra belly fat, right? Extra belly fat. That might be, or just belly fat. Well, even the word extra. Extra is not that great. See, even I have to continue to really whittle this down, because it's just the way our brains think, but we got to make it fit. So I have to delete things. Extra doesn't help much. A little bit, right? When someone believes they have extra more than they should. But if you say belly fat, they know what you're talking about. Put single quotes around it, call it a day. Then you might have one that says low energy, right? Completely different pain. Has nothing to do with belly fat. And then you might have another one that is about, you know, it's about more about how you can't do something, right? Like can't pick up your kids if you're older, right? If you're marketing to them. The point I'm making is that these are all very different from each other, right? And what that means is these are when you're really trying to isolate, the broader pain, the broader pain. Now, that's okay to do. And a lot of you did that. But now think about this. Let's say low energy won. Okay. It may be in the future, after you've finished out your PBC tests, that you do another pain test that is specific and not so broad. So what do I mean by that? You're testing the nuance of the way the word is stated. Now, this is not going to give you a big lift like the broad one will. where you're casting a wide net going, okay, which general direction are we going, right? So let's say that you're going to use the belly fat one. Well, now over here with belly fat, you're going to find 5 different ways to say belly fat. Guys, give me some examples. What is another thing that's very closely related to, excuse me, belly fat? Bulging belly, love handles, right? These are all very specific to that particular issue, right? Big waist, flab, right? Yeah, big waist. Look pregnant. Oh my God, Martina. Uh, big waist, big waist. In Oz, it's beer gut. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, beer gut. Yeah, beer belly. We say beer belly a lot in the States, beer gut, beer belly, um, bulging gut, you know. So now you're testing the nuances of basically the same thing, but you're finding the best way to say it to see what people respond to. Now, from the numbers, your CTRLs are typically going to be a lot closer together when you do this. They're not going to have much of a spread because they're essentially referring to the same thing. But you will be surprised that some people respond much more to bulging belly than they do beer belly. You don't know. Or beer belly, they respond to even more. And you would never know that unless you test the nuance of it. So where does this play out in the tests? This could be doing a new PBC test, right? Or you may have already gone through CIA and you found a formula that works really well. And you may say, okay, instead of belly fat, I'm going to use that same formula and I'm now going to test each of these. I'm going to do 4 of the same exact headline formula and I'm just literally going to substitute another way to say the same thing. And I have found at times, it doesn't always work, but I have found at times it does. So do I recommend always doing this? If you have plenty of budget to test, yes. But this is some of the minute details we get into. This is kind of how we follow scaling clients in the agency when we kind of know that, okay, now let's go attack the low energy one and do a bunch of ways to say low energy. Exhausted, right? Fatigue. There's so many. Go use word hippo, go find other words for these and test which ones people respond to the most. The options are literally endless. Are you all seeing that? Busted can of biscuits. Hilarious. Thank you, Greg. So here it is, guys. This is the way to do this with precision, to be as efficient as possible. Those of you who have scientific or engineering minds, I've heard this phrase, I swear, at least a dozen times now, doing these workshops. They say this process speaks to the engineer in me, or this speaks to the scientist in me. And it's so funny because I see it so often. And there actually somebody said it in this one too. They posted it in the group, said the same thing. You can actually go look at the sales page of the message mapping workshop and see that there in those screenshots, other people have posted in the group the same thing. And it works. So for those of you who would classify yourself as a scientific thinker or have an engineering mind or love math, this is literally a braingasm for you, right? And have fun with it. Now you have an advantage to do this over the people who are super creative that can come up with all this stuff off the top of their head, and you wish that you had that type of capacity. You don't have to have it. You have a more stable, consistent way of using a process that allows you to find that message every time. As Greg says, this is the way.
By
Hey,
analogy too here, It's
Yeah.
back to my drone analogy when you're looking for precious metals in a field, or even if you're in a cave and you're, you know, the PBC test, we need a reliable, repeatable way to know where to start. That's what it does. Because otherwise I'm standing in the dark in a cave and I could tap at any particular spot on the wall and have no idea how to try and find where the gold vein is. The PBC test is a cost-efficient, reliable, repeatable way for you to find the gold vein. So then sometimes I've had people think, oh, therefore we have to keep doing really rigorous kinds of tests over and over again. No, if you find a gold vein, you just keep chipping away, because whether that gold vein splits into a really long vein or it splits off into a short vein, either way, it's all still gold. So sure, if you follow one PBC process that's good and you chip away and all of a sudden you're not really getting any results from that vein anymore, you've still got all the other data you've got to then quickly is the key word, chip away into another vein of gold and begin to mine the gold. And that's why you don't have to do a complete replica of PBC from the beginning every single time to start. You can begin to go, I've already got the direction. I'm now just following the gold vein. That's what this is, as quickly and as cost efficiently as possible.
Yay.
Another thing, just I wanted to, oh, had you finished, Chris?
I am finished.
I wanted to show folks something.
Sure.
Um, Let me do this because we often don't think of it this way, but so I've already mapped out in the past what's exactly going on for someone's brain when they are scrolling on a Facebook feed. And I want you to look at the time frame. It's from 0 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds before the motor cortex activates that they're either going to scroll or they're going to click see more. This is this kind of time period. And the first three lines here are the first things that happen, and it's irrelevant what you've written at this point or what image you've used at this point. The photons hit the retina, hit the back of your eyes. Mind you, it's blurry too, so the eye's got to do all this really complicated stuff. At this level here, it reaches your visual cortex, and you can see here that the basic features of the ad are detected, and the brain registered some motion of scrolling, but nothing's really identified yet. Then here at the 100 milliseconds point, and then sometimes earlier, you've got what they call the what and where recognition pathways, right? And I won't go in the network of what it is, but then here, especially, you've got the amygdala and what's called your orbitofrontal cortex are assessing the emotional and social appropriateness of the ad. It's happening in this 150 millisecond to 200 millisecond range. That's only 50 milliseconds. This is where the person is either saying, I'm going to click see more or I'm going to keep scrolling. This is where that assessment is made. And they're not consciously making it, it's happening to them. It's in that 50 milliseconds. This is where all those social the rules of engagement all apply in that 50 milliseconds. Well, at the top, the rest of the body copy isn't included in this yet because they haven't clicked on see more yet. So after this has been assessed, you then jump down to here and you've got another 150 milliseconds. And this is now what we call a central executive network. It's where the person there's multiple brain regions, weigh the relevance of this and whether they should task switch, which is switch out of what they were doing, which was scrolling, and switch to a different task, which is I now to pay attention. Because when you're scrolling, you're not paying attention. That's mindless. When you hit see more, it's because you're deciding to pay attention. That's going to use resources, mental resources, glucose, energy, focus, time, all that sort of stuff. Look at it. It's all being evaluated in this moment of time. Okay. And so that's why, and that's the moment you've got. Because otherwise, if they scroll past, your ad's gone. They're on to the next one. And this can seem like, okay, well, far out. How do we actually capture it? And I think what's relevant is this. This is what we are having to do in message mapping in order to break it apart. To break down that split second, it's not even a split second, it's faster than a split second, to look at where the bullet's going and be able to stop and go, okay, I'm going to move that and do that there. We are literally slowing down time to, how do I stop share there? We're literally slowing down that time and unpacking the whole thing. But literally, that's when it happens. That's what's going on. That's why all these things are important. That's why we win. We have to win in those kind of 100 milliseconds. That's where we got to win. And this is how we do it. It's awesome.
I'll become Neo unsubstantiated. I'll become Neo unsubstantiated claim. Yeah, Steven says Neurocreative Workshop was so good. Yeah, I mean, you guys, that takes what he just showed right there to an entire level of how the brain understands these images and what it triggers for people. And it's mind-blowing to see the differences. So let's
That's
wrap
great,
up
Dave,
on
by the
this.
way.
What's that?
Oh, so Dave's just commented that he's followed something from the neurocreative process and chose an image that's great results for his CTRs on his Medicare tests. Yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah, the neurocreative workshop is like, this was all about messaging, right? And of course, your PBC can help inform you on how to put a message together because that image now can represent the pain, the benefit, and the challenge, or one of those three, right? And the thing I want to talk about for a quick moment here is, okay, so remember the concept of the ultimate benefit. That concept can be applied from your ad to your landing page. Okay, so I said I'd talk about this for a moment. So I want you to think about this. If you have an ad and you have a PBC that's working well, you obviously want to make your landing page very congruent with that message. However, some of you would go, oh, well, I'm just going to take what the above creative headline is and I'm going to slap that onto my landing page. No, 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 no. Never do that. I once had a client who I wrote a full ad for, and his landing page was horrendous. And I was going to get to helping him do that. And I told him that the page wasn't working and that we needed to meet about it. But we set a meeting about 2 days later. And in the meantime, he went and took the exact copy of my body copy of my ad. And he basically copied the entire ad, including the headlines, and put it on the landing page. Guess how many results he got? Goose eggs. Okay. Why do I tell you about this story? Think about it like this. Everybody has a customer journey. If you start bringing them along the customer journey, and then all of a sudden they go to the next stage and they feel like they've gone back in time and they're reading the same thing, why would they continue forward? You never want to do that. You don't want to make redundant claims or redundant copy on your page, on your ad to your page. You do not want to make it the same message. You don't need it. You did it once. You don't need to do it again. So then that begs the question, okay, Chris, what do we do, right? What we do is we think about the ultimate outcomes of what our ad is saying, okay? So if my pain is bulging belly, what's the ultimate outcome of bulging belly? It would be the same thing as what the ultimate benefit is of your benefit, except it's the negative. It's what happens with a bulging belly as it gets bigger. What happens? And there could be, lots of different ways you could go with that. But you want to use the ultimate outcome of that because here's why. Because this is the reason why we wanted you to do the ultimate benefit and think about it that way, to make sure that your ultimate benefit is in fact the overarching reason why they would want to experience any of the direct benefits. Because if you use more ultimate benefits and ultimate outcomes on your landing page, that allows you to use all of these different combinations of pains and benefits and challenges, and they're still going to the next step, which is the next outcome of what you told them in your ad. And now they feel like they're continuing to move forward in the customer journey and not go backwards. And that's when our conversion rates go way up on our landing page. Now, do I have particular formulas and structures and all of that stuff for landing pages? I do not have that available for you. I'm usually working with people in my agency. I can't show their landing pages. I don't have a template pack or any of that stuff to sell you. So for those of you who don't have a lot of landing page experience, I don't necessarily have those resources, but we work with you kind of one-on-one to kind of customize that for you if you come into some of our other programs like Code Methodology, SPS. So, some of you have reached out about that. I apologize. But the real thing that matters is not so much the structure or the template to follow. That just makes the brain feel at ease. What really matters is the message that you accomplish. So whatever structure or formula or format you have on your page, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is the message you put on it. And so if you want to think about your pain and think about what the ultimate pain is, just like your benefits, and use the ultimate benefit on your landing page, and you may have room to throw in a couple of the primary benefits that tested well, you could do that too. But ultimately, you want the ultimate benefit, the ultimate pain, and also the ultimate challenges. And you may have to list out any of the relevant challenges that are working in your ads. It may have to work that way. And so there would be a little bit of redundancy with the challenges if you cannot find an ultimate challenge. But just think about it that way. Whatever's on your ad, you're looking for the ultimate outcomes that you put on your landing page. That way you can use different benefits, different pains, different benefit combinations, different challenge combinations, and it all still goes to a page that has the next progression of it. And I'm telling you, when I follow that, no matter the format, no matter the structure, with every client we have, with every customer, with everybody that comes in our programs, they always get better results because they have a congruent message. They have one message ecosystem that has these overarching pieces like an ultimate benefit and an ultimate pain and an ultimate challenge. So that's the thing you want to think about, is what are the things that encompass all of the different pains, benefits, and challenges that you would be testing. So Greg, using a shared ultimate benefit message on landing pages means we don't need multiple landing pages. Bonus. You got it, Greg. Yes. And you wouldn't want to anyway. You literally would not. It is not good to repeat all of this stuff. You want to confirm to them that they have moved forward to the next phase of their journey. You don't want to confirm to them the same thing they already read and already know, especially if they already read your 300 to 400 word ad that says all of these things in detail. Why would you go backwards to the main promise you had in your ad and try to promise them that again on your landing page? That's like going backwards.
Who likes phoning up a company that you've got to deal with and you explain the problem to the person on the phone and then they say, oh, I'll just put you through to someone else. And then you have to re-explain yourself again. I mean, if you find that frustrating and annoying when you do that, just think about the same thing here. Someone already read the thing, they're going, I'm interested. And then they got to read it all again, go through the same thing. It's just not, it creates friction, and friction means easy mental opt-out.
So Martina said, some days ago you shared in the group a PBC prompt for future tests. Is this part of the tertiary process? It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It's essentially just a brainstorming mechanism for you to do PBCs with from here on out. And if you want to use it to find new things to test, like you find your benefit to, and you're like, oh, let me test a few of these challenges that I didn't test before. Totally fine to do. So it's neither or. It's either or. It could be. It just helps. It's not essential part of the process that needs to be there. It's just a way for you to be able to brainstorm different angles, different elements for you to test. Raj, the landing page should market the real problem. Yeah, I mean, you should be able to tie the ultimate outcome to that problem. You do have to do that, because oftentimes, think about this narrative. In the ad, you might be much more problem aware, where you say, people are experiencing these symptoms, and these symptoms. And if they have these symptoms, it's probably because they are dealing with this root cause or this problem. As a good example, someone is dealing with acne, brain fog, and skin breakouts, and they cannot understand why. They're a grown person in their 40s. Why is this happening? It's probably because they have leaky gut, right? Leaky gut is a diagnosis, not technically, but it's actually a marketing phrase. But in this particular context, the leaky gut would be the thing that says, here's your problem. You actually have leaky gut, and then you get to explain it. Well, that might happen on your landing page. Yes. So you're going to give them the ultimate outcome so that they know they've progressed through and what they are going to experience. But yes, you're probably going to marry that along with the real problem that you're giving them. But you may be giving them that problem in your ad as well. Even in your first section where you're unpacking the pains, you may say all these pains are because of this problem. And I have the solution for that. Let me tell you what this solution is. And here's the benefits you get. And you overcome the challenges and so on and so forth. And so that is much more dependent upon your unique offer as to whether or not you need to tell them about the problem or the root cause. In some cases, it's very relevant to do so. In other cases, it's not. Let me give you an example of a root cause that a lot of you did not know. So my 5-dimensional ad, my whole premise is that you're using a 5-dimensional ad because it allows you to algorithmically win and get better results with your ads. But you don't know the root cause as to why you're losing. So when I show you the auction formula and how that works with the estimated action rate and the engagement rate, then what happens is I'm showing you the root cause of why you're having these issues, right? And I allude to some of that in my sales page where I say, look, it's because of low auction scores. So I am actually showing them the real problem on my page. But they're not going to listen to low auction scores until I tell them what the symptoms of that are. That's how they're going to respond in the first place. But I also get to tell them that if you don't fix these auction scores, your ads are going to get you nowhere. It's going to lead to higher bloated costs, and you're not going to get your results back. So the root cause or the problem does come into play depending on your offer. In some cases it does. In some cases it's a lot more straightforward and you don't need to do that. It may be a lotion, like where you're not necessarily, or a skin cream, when you're not having to say, well, the root cause of all this, you might not even go there. You might, but there again, you might not. And that's really dependent upon your offer and how you've chosen to create your narrative. What I'm saying is the way you lead off in your headlines, in your landing page, typically should be the ultimate outcome of the pains and benefits and challenges that you tested. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, definitely counter to what many people teach of just drop in all the pre-tested nuggets in your landers.
And just to show you guys, I mean, pulling up the kimono a bit, and just to show you, we've been testing things. This 5D course that Chris has put together in the Neuro Creative Workshop into that funnel we've been doing that while we've been scrambling like mad in all the other things and projects that we're involved in. So it's not like we've got all the time in the world to sit back and plan the absolutely perfect funnel and go for it. But just to have a quick look at this, if you're seeing that screenshot there, the thing I want to point out, this is about landing pages, is looking at that conversion rate on the landing page at 21%.
Can you zoom out a little bit on this in any way? There we go. Yeah. Look at that.
Right. So I just went in and grabbed a quick screenshot of the last little period of time. Because this is how we get there. So, and we're looking at even the differences between mobile and desktop versions, and we've spent a bit of time running tests using the next step of things that we do later on when we're actually doing conversion rate optimization right through the funnel. And the way we start with that is we look at the messaging. We apply the same principles, I mean, that Chris has derived, code principles right throughout to go, what messaging are we going to test before necessarily going through and trying to test all different page layouts and all different different images and all that kind of thing that can happen, we still focus in on setting context. And so that's where we've got to so far, but there's definitely room for improvement with upsell conversion rates and all that kind of stuff. So we're in the same boat as having to work this, except that, that's where we are. And I thought I'd show you what we're doing on our side of things.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. That's, 1 out of 5 people are converting and from an ad. And some of you can't even get a 20% free opt-in. And that's a $37 sale. And that's getting a 20% conversion rate. Let alone some of you can't even get to 20% on your free opt-in. This means this works. We are not showing that to you to brag. Maybe a little bit. But in all reality, just so you see the result of it. And I can tell you, I haven't done half the things to optimize that page that I wanted to, but I know a few things, which is to make sure the message is congruent and draw the visual illustrations of how it works. And it worked well. So I love it, Dave. Just money flying away. And Rich called warm transfer. That's a good word, actually. It is also referred to that in other areas of marketing, the warm transfer, where you're kind of like substantiating what they've got, where they're at, and to where they're going. And it's like transferring them over. So yeah, Rich, totally get you there, bud. My main challenge in courses is they don't actually do this at scale themselves anymore. So thanks. You got it, man. Because yes, we do. We do this stuff. And keep in mind, remember, now you understand. Justin came through and did a PBC process. It was his #1 winner. And he did, it was just the first winner that came through his PBC through the class. He then, 90 days later, Nick, quote me if I'm wrong, but he was already at like spending $80,000, and then 6 months later it was at $200,000 a month, like $80,000 a month in 90 days, and then up to $200,000 a month. Literally that same PBC.
Yeah, he came in at $2,000 a month is what he was spending, but he wasn't making any profit. He was in the hole every month doing that, and had almost given up on doing that. Because the venture capitalist, raise money approach is someone gives him a lot of money and they just dump it in brand awareness type of ads or direct response ads, and you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, and he's taken that same PBC and he uses it in Google pay-per-click ads, and that same tested PBC headline formula. He's still spending, and it's been what, almost a year now, Nick, or maybe 10 months, 9 months or more? More. And consistently spending 200 grand just on Google pay-per-click. And that headline is the description that shows up in Google pay-per-click. His title is some of the keywords that people are searching for, but the description is the exact word for word PBC tested headline formula.
And as you know, on Reddit, it's working as well.
And it's getting in the same cost on Reddit as he's getting on Facebook per se.
And Reddit's interesting because people are so willing to get controversial, and they're so disagreeable over there. So, nevertheless, it still holds true. It stood up.
That's the hilarious part about it, is even the reps at Reddit told us, no, don't keep the comments on, because the crowd at Reddit, they love to just troll you to death. They are the kings of, oh, you fell for that thing? Oh yeah, ha ha, I'm smarter than you. You're not. That's literally like pretty much the whole trope that happens on Reddit all the time. Everyone has to act smarter than they are and prove that they're smarter than someone else and that they didn't fall for one thing or another. Everything's a scam. The most skeptical people ever. So as a guideline, the reps said, turn off your comments. And it was hilarious because I'm like, no, watch this work. We're not using direct language. We're not acting like idiots. We're following all of our social rules of engagement. Guess what happened? So we did versions where we turned off the comments and the same exact version where we kept the comments on. Guess one was giving the best cost per result. The one where we left the comments on Reddit, where everybody turns off their ads. This is the hilarious thing about it. Even somebody right away in the comments on the ad said, oh my God, you made the biggest mistake of leaving the comments on. Now I'm going to bury you in the comments. And there were people that were like, yeah, he's an idiot for doing that. Yeah, he's an idiot for doing that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they start talking, crap about what this is. And it created so much engagement that because their algorithm is so similar to Facebook, the ad is getting the best results ever from all of the ads. I could not stop laughing when I saw that. That's the difference when you use the social rules of engagement and you use this type of marketing and you're not being pitchy and direct and being a total just, douchebag about some of this stuff, And when you come and when you lead in the right way like this, people just respond better. Your negative comments go way down. Your engagement does go way up. And the big difference is if your ad is like ours versus someone who's, calling directly out, hey, are you frustrated with this? Or, something like that. Like, are you looking to sell your home? If you're not looking to sell your home, that person is going to hide that post and hide the post or report it as spam because it'll be like, I'm not looking to sell my home. So then you start accumulating the negative feedback from people hiding the post and the ad tanks and stops working. Doesn't even get good impressions. But if you say, here's how homeowners sell their homes, in this market, pain benefit challenge, yada, yada, with our unique, home selling process, whatever that is. I actually have one of these. I did this very well for the largest realtor in Calgary, Canada. And he became number one because of this. And the difference is someone who's not looking to sell their home sees that post and they don't hide it. They're like, oh, that's interesting, but that doesn't apply to me. Keep scrolling. And they leave it alone. So they don't signal negative feedback, right? They don't signal negative feedback at all. So Stephen, have to drop. Thank you for the great course. Looking forward to connecting next week, Nick. Right on, Stephen. Happy that you really liked it and you got a lot out of it, and the best is yet to come. So ultimately, guys, that's the big point is you may have the same amount of people respond to your ad if you're using a direct call out or using our code way of doing it with PBCs, with elements, our 5-dimensional way of doing it, right? But the difference is ours does not get people hiding our posts and accumulating negative feedback. So on the
It's like
search,
the minute I turned
what's that?
the minute I turned 50, I started seeing all these ads targeted for 50-year-olds who I don't resonate, whatever message they were talking about, I don't resonate at all. I was reading these ads targeting me at 50 going, what do you think, I'm 70 or 80? And so because I know how to hide ads, you know how many ads I've hidden and reported and said, irrelevant, irrelevant. I'm just getting rid of those ads because I'm going, if you're too dumb to know that your ad is effectively telling me that because I'm now 50, I'm getting old and decrepit and I've got all this arthritis and all this kinds of stuff, which I don't have, then of course, and it only takes a few of me's around to go, unlike, hide, because I don't want to see it. I don't want this stuff popping up telling me. But if they were to write an ad that was following these principles that got me in, that didn't create friction, I'm going to read the ad. Maybe I am hurting a bit more and taking a bit longer to recover from the gym these days, so, but I don't want some person coming and being so presumptuous about it.
What I found is like even with those real estate ads where I was like, here's how homeowners are looking to sell their home. Guess what happened the most in the comments? People would tag their friends in the comments and say, you need to read this because you're looking to sell your home. You'd actually get social sharing and people pointing you out and tagging you in ads saying this is relevant to you, but not me. Because it's just a good piece of information. And they're like, hey, you should read this. This is good. Even if it wasn't relevant to the person who originally did the tagging. And that's the difference here, is you sidestep all that negativity and all the blowback. And even if you have the same click rates, which usually you don't, but even if you do have the same response rate, these types of ads are going to last and sustain, so you don't have to refresh your creative next week. So there it is. Rich, I'm very curious. Hashtag Blue Chew. I've seen you do that a couple times. I have no idea what
Is it? Well, I think it's a Viagra reference, isn't
is it?
it?
You know, I had a buddy who was making a ton of money, and I thought it was in the one particular niche and industry that we were in at the time. We were actually all living in a house together for a while. We were a bit younger. And it was hilarious because I was looking at his numbers and I'm like, there's no way. How are you making the kind of money that you're making? And then I found another account where he was selling Viagra pills. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense, right? But for those of you who have a little more ethics and don't want to have to do that, right? It's better to just figure out how to do this. All right, Rich got a jet. Thanks for the course. Catch you all in the group. Have a good
And
weekend.
I got a jet too. It's been going.
Yep. So any last closing thoughts or closing questions? We're going to wrap it up and call it. Chris, is there a document that comes with the CIA video of yesterday? There is not. I am going to put the screenshots of what I drew out for you in the course. I just hadn't done it yet, but I am going to give like the chicken scratch screenshots that I drew out. I don't have one yet. I do want to create one. So probably for the next workshop, I'll have that. I just behind the 8 ball and, you know, millions of things to do and need to hire more. Lots happening. So it's just one of those things that's not necessarily I could get to yet. But yeah, I want to have that for all of you. So Kelly, Chris, and Nick, this time was better than the first class. Love it. Makes so much sense. Kelly, here's what I would say. I tend to think the latest one is always the best one, but it's also because you understand more from the last one that you get more realizations this time. And that is true from anyone who has joined us in multiple workshops. They say the same thing. This one was better than the last one. And I start to ask questions as to what they got out of it. And I say, you couldn't have gotten this out of it unless you learned this the first time. So there's a lot here that will probably become a lot clearer to you if you watch the recordings all over again. There will be nuggets that come out of every day, more realizations. But if you join us again, which all of you are going to have a discounted link next time we do it, you'll get an email about that at the right time. You'll get more out of it, even if you're just following along and auditing without even doing a PBC, although I'd highly recommend taking advantage of getting us to look at your PBCs again and doing another PBC. But yes, learn on top of what you have learned. Absolutely. I've watched your Epic ad over 500 times. It made so much sense. My Epic ad? Epic ad formula? The one I had years ago, Kelly? You talking about that? All right, lots of questions to work through, but Chris and Nick, you have given us clear direction, specific processes, and hope. The feeling of debilitation and never winning is gone. Thanks so much. Holy smokes, Murray, that's got to be one of the best responses, testimonials I've ever heard. Wow. Thank you. I'm honored. I appreciate that. Really do. Yeah, the first one you sent. Kelly, yeah, I'm still probably a little first one I sent sold, maybe. But yeah, 500 times, it makes sense. You should get it by now. Yeah, for sure.
And yes, Dave too. Yeah. You know, after we've gone through where you're at in with your PBC test, and I get a sense of what your business is, I can definitely talk to you about the other trainings and programs that we have and how we can help work with you. So look forward to that.
Martina, I had lost hope too, and now it's restored. Wow. It's still, it never gets old seeing it. I mean, I've seen this enough to know I'm not shocked because I see this happen a lot, but it's still so cool to see it, to hear it. It never gets old. You guys can shower whatever testimonials and thoughts you have right now That absolutely just bring it on as we're getting out of here. That's totally fine. And then of course, you're going to be able to do some of your CIA testing, and then you're going to be able to hop on with Nick and be able to brief him and show him like, here's how this worked out. That's going to be cool. And we're looking forward to seeing it. So with that, we're going to wrap it. And I appreciate all of you for trusting myself and Dr. Nick. I appreciate all of you sticking with us, even when it was hard. I appreciate it when you guys had points of confusion and frustration. We all did. It's a part of it, but we did it. And there's still so many of you here. Like barely anybody has fallen off. It's still just about everybody here. And it's really cool to see. So you guys crushed it. And we're looking forward to seeing these results. Please, please, please share your wins in the group. Help inspire others who may not have had the crazy, massive, unbelievable results that some of you have gotten, and know that that's in store for them if they just continue on and get better at this and learn it. So it's been my honor, and never gets old. So we're going to wrap it up. We'll be in the group for the next 2 weeks for you guys, monitoring it pretty closely, making sure you got what you need. And then from there, talk with Nick. And for those of you who need further help, ask Nick about that. And we've got some options for you.
And I'll get Chris to send out that email with the link as well, just to make sure you've got it in your inbox if you can't find it in the group.
I will be doing that here soon. All right. That's a wrap. Have a good one.
Fantastic work, guys.
We'll see you in the group. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.